Now,
on News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
5:06 on this first day of August. Thanks for tuning in here bright and early, dark and early. Although the moon is bright. Did you see that full moon out there? It's going to be gorgeous. Beautiful. On this Tuesday morning in the nation's capital, thanks for tuning in here to your favorite little team of players to wake up to. It's me, Larry O'Connor, alongside Julie Gunlock this morning. Jules,
good morning. Good morning.
6:35, our friend Ginny Gentles will be here. She's got an event coming up this Wednesday for parents in Alexandria to come out and talk about their school system. 7:05, Mike Summers of American Petroleum Institute, because, well, it's hot out, so they want to take your car away. 7:35, Jim Lehman, he's the founder of Transparency in Education. That's the group working out in Frederick County on their curriculum. And at 8:05, Bethany Mandel, Montgomery County mom, on what's about to hit the Montgomery County school system with regard to their gender and sexually oriented curriculum. A lot of school stuff in the news today with our guests. That's good.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you and I, we're going to carry the load here on the remarkable testimony yesterday of one Devon Archer, the former business partner of Hunter Biden. By the way, I just want to point out here, there wasn't a whole lot of mention of Devon Archer or Hunter Biden on any of the cable networks, not beginning with an F or an N. It would be Fox and Newsmax, in case you're playing at home. If you're watching CNN or MSNBC or any of the broadcast networks, or the New York Times as your main source of news and information, as our friend Molly Hemingway constantly points out, you are woefully and embarrassingly, like scandalously uninformed.
Criminally.
About what is going on in the world. But elsewhere, you were hearing that we would have this major testimony from Devon Archer yesterday. Let me remind you who Devon Archer is. This was uncovered in the Hunter Biden laptop. There was a text message sent by Devon Archer to Hunter Biden on March 6th, 2019. Think of that date for a minute. Donald Trump is the president of the United States, right? Attorney General Burr is in charge. Barr, excuse me.
Bill Barr.
Is in charge. William Barr is in charge of the Justice Department. Here's the text message from Devon Archer. Why did your dad's administration appointees arrest me and try to put me in jail? Just curious. Some of our partners are asking out there. This is the day that he was arrested. Notice, by the way, that he doesn't say, what's going on with this Trump Justice Department?
Yes.
He says, why did your dad's administration's appointees, which implies, obviously, that they expected to get a free ride from people who were appointed to the Justice Department by Obama and Biden, right? Now, you may be saying, well, see, they didn't give him a free ride. See, well, no.
It also shows they were still there.
They were expecting it. They were still there. And why did they arrest him? Well, let me point out the date again, March 2019. Why is that important? Because in April 2019, Joe Biden announced that he was running for president. They needed to send a message to Devon Archer. They needed to make sure that he was in line. They needed to make sure that the intimidation was there. They needed to make sure that he kept his mouth shut. What better way to do that than to make sure, put the fear of God into him, right? And, oh, by the way, once Dad, the big guy, gets elected, all this will go away. Well, of course, the Hunter Biden story spiraled a little bit further out of control than they thought, because they didn't realize the laptop was going to drop several months later, a year later, actually. And so, yes, Devon Archer ended up getting convicted. He still hasn't been sentenced yet, right? He can still get off with a pretty light sentence. That's why the Justice Department, once again this weekend, wanted to send the message to him. We still have your future in our hands. We still have a certain sensitive part of your body, theoretically, in our hands, and we can squeeze if we want to.
And they did.
That's what's going on here. All right. So that's who Devon Archer is, and that's the relationship with Hunter Biden. After his closed-door testimony, here's how Bill Hemmer summarized it yesterday on the aforementioned Fox News channel.
Archer tells the House investigators that Hunter Biden put then VP Biden on a speakerphone more than 20 times to sell, quote, the brand, in parentheses, in business conversations. And Chad goes on to say that Archer testified that there was a value of adding Hunter Biden to Burisma's board, was the brand. Burisma is the energy company out of Ukraine. The argument was that then Vice President Joe Biden brought the most value to the brand. There's that phrase yet again. Archer also stated that Burisma would have gone under if not for the brand. Wow. In December.
All right, let's put that together real fast. The brand. Joe Biden was put on the speakerphone just to talk about the weather, according to Representative Dan Goldman.
Right.
They didn't talk business. They just contacted him on the phone because it helped reinforce the brand. Burisma would have gone under, that Ukrainian gas company, if it weren't for the brand. What's the brand? The brand is Joe Biden.
Yep.
The brand is the Vice President of the United States. The brand is the second most powerful man in the world. The man who Barack Obama, the single most powerful man in the world at the time, put in charge of policies in countries like Ukraine and other corrupt cesspools over in
the man
Eastern
who got
Europe.
a Ukrainian prosecutor
That's
dismissed.
the brand.
Yep.
So when you hear all these people saying, oh, well, they didn't talk business, they didn't have to. The business was getting Joe Biden on the phone. As you heard from Joe DeGenever in her interview yesterday, they were selling access. They weren't selling policy. They weren't selling guarantees.
They weren't a guaranteed outcome.
Nope. They said, listen, all I can do is
get him on the phone.
We can get the vice president on the phone. Oh, I don't believe you can get the vice president on the phone. Why should I pay you millions of dollars if I don't believe you. You're just smoke and mirrors. Oh, really? You don't believe me? Watch this. Hey, Dad, how's it going? Hey, son, how are you? Yeah, it's me, the vice president. That's what they were doing.
Yes.
And that's how they funneled $17, maybe $25 million into, let me remind you, 21 shell corporations. Let me remind you that these wire transfers raised over 100 red flags from banks who put alerts on saying, this doesn't seem right, all this money coming in from these countries to these various companies. That's what's going on here. And if you need further evidence, if you still hear people saying, well, it didn't affect anything, he wasn't really involved. First of all, we don't need any proof or smoking gun that he did anything, because the illegality is the access.
Yeah.
Can you get the vice president on the phone? No, you can't.
They were paid to.
One man could,
Yes.
and they made a lot of money off of that.
And you made a very good point earlier when you talked about, they were in business with Hunter Biden. What business was that?
Yes.
The business was only to dial his father.
That's right.
That's it.
That's right. It's so funny to see all these people on CNN, MSNBC saying, what? He happened to be on the phone. He didn't talk business. And yes, his son's business associates happened to be in the room. Full stop. Business associates. I love this use of euphemism. Business associates.
Yeah.
What business were they in?
Yeah.
What was Hunter Biden's business? Hunter Biden's business was selling access to his dad. The business associates were buying that phone call.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
The Hunter's only business was getting money for his father.
Let me just understand. Let me explain something to you. I've got my father, the vice president, on the end of a phone anytime I want. I push this button. I've got him here. Let me show it to you. Bloop. There he is. All right. Now that our business is done, you wire the money into my accounts. Now, later, when you're not in the room and Devon Archer is in the room, when no one else is in the room to witness anything, I will privately call my dad and I'll let him know exactly what you need done. And then my dad will do what you need done. Need proof of that?
I went over for, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I'm not going to, or we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid.
Well, there's no evidence that Burisma utilized Hunter Biden and his access to Joe Biden to get that done. Oh, really? Yesterday, that's exactly what Devon Archer testified to. Devon Archer said that Hunter Biden and Burisma executives called D.C. to get Ukrainian prosecutor fired. All right, more on this in a moment. It's 5:15 WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the Fives with Jamie Whitten and the Hadid Carpet Cleaning.
Of the news.
Live
From the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Your favorite WMAL shows when you want them. Download the new WMAL app and listen on demand.
Julie Gunlock, you just were listening along to all of that, and you said that you're having a little bout of deja vu.
Yeah, I find all of this kind of frustrating because, yes, what Devon Archer said is really interesting, but we heard this from Tony Bobulinski.
The other partner.
Yeah, the other partner. And it frustrates me that, we heard from Tony Bobulinski, great interview with Tucker Carlson, and that just sort of floated away, right?
Well,
and
yes, it
there
did.
wasn't as much evidence. They don't, the Comers committees come up with.
They didn't have the
Right.
the paperwork of the
Right.
bank transfers and all of the accounts and all of that stuff.
1023.
You're right. You're right.
But
we did have a name that was on all of those emails in Hunter's laptop.
Yes.
Tony Bobulinski in an interview with Tucker Carlson, and you're right, it did disappear. Why did it disappear? Do you know why?
the media. let
Even
it.
more importantly, when did that interview take place?
I don't.
It was a week before the election. It was a week before the election. It was back when it was still Russian disinformation.
That's right.
It was Putin who was doing it. The Tucker Carlson was actually in the back pocket of Vladimir Putin doing the bidding of Russian propagandists.
Yep.
And this was election
But
meddling, and it needed to be censored, and it needed to be deleted, and we're not going to dabble in that. That's outrageous. And they had an election to win.
Yeah, but there's been no election tampering.
No.
Okay.
We're
interference.
watching election tampering
Yes.
play out before our eyes. So the Democrats have to do some damage control yesterday. So who do they trot out? Do they trot out Jerry Nadler? Do they trot out Adam Schiff?
Nancy
Do they
Pelosi.
trot out Eric Swalwell,
Yeah.
Nancy Pelosi, Hakeem Jeffries,
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
the minority leader? No. They trot out Representative Dan Goldman. Let me give you his resume. He's been in Congress 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
He is he's got 100% independently wealthy, so he doesn't actually have to attend a fundraiser.
That's right.
Ever to keep
Can
his
fund
campaign
his own
funds.
campaigns.
And he's in a solid blue Bay Area,
Yep.
in New York, a solid blue New York district. So he's the guy they send out there. Oh, and by the way, he also was the lead prosecutor in the impeachment of Donald Trump. He was the lawyer hired by Adam Schiff and the Democrats to impeach Donald Trump over the Ukraine phone call. So this is also his way of covering his own butt.
Sure.
Because he made such a big deal out of the phone call that now makes a whole lot of sense if it didn't make sense before.
So to confirm, you're saying that the speakerphone conversations, they don't seem concerning to you because there was no specifics about business, and it just seemed like
it was clear that it was as part of the daily conversations that Hunter Biden had with his father, and it was and sounded like most of the time now President Biden didn't even know who the people he was at dinner. He was just asked to say hello. The people at dinner. We've talked about this dinner a few times in the past. We've alluded to it, but we learned a lot more details about this dinner. This was an infamous dinner in Georgetown at Cafe Milano where deals are made.
Yes.
Cafe Milano is full of K Street lawyers and lobbyists and select elected representatives or members of the administration who are being targeted.
Yeah.
That's why you go to a dinner at Cafe Milano, or you're a person in the media who wants to sit at a table and watch it all happen.
Yeah. Sometimes celebrities end up there. Yeah. It's a happening place.
So what happened is you hear Daniel go, he didn't even know who was at the dinner. He didn't even know who was on the phone. He was just calling to say hi to his son. He's a wonderful, loving father. He doesn't have to.
Right.
But now we know who exactly was at that dinner at Cafe Milano. And boy, is it enlightening, especially considering this country, this administration, and the Obama administration's policies toward Russia. I'll give you all those details in a quick moment. We got a lot of time. Don't worry. Relax. Downshift.
He's talking to me.
We're also going to we're not talking to all of you. We're going to go through it all this hour and the media reaction. Just wait till you hear what the New York Times had to say about this. More to come. It's 5:21. All right. So let's talk about this dinner in Georgetown because we hear about this all the time. Or we've talked about it, but we've referenced it. This was a dinner at Cafe Milano, Hunter Biden in a private room, and he had a Russian oligarch and his wife with him. Now, spoiler alert, that Russian oligarch's wife paid, I believe, upwards to $2 million to Biden Inc. And it just so happens that Russian oligarch dodged every sanction from the Obama administration and every sanction from the Biden administration with regard to Ukraine, because we really care about the Ukrainians, and this won't stand, and Putin's got to go, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But somehow this is the one guy who hasn't been sanctioned in all of this, right?
Funny that.
Joe Biden didn't know who was in the room. He was just stopping by to say hi to his son because his newest son was in town eating dinner in Georgetown.
So, Larry, explain what that means.
Because people around the guy, I think most people here might know it, but let me just walk it through. When the president worked at the White House as when the vice president, Biden then, worked at the White House, when it was time for him to come home, I used to see this because I used to go to happy hour on Morton's all the time on Connecticut, right? They had that beautiful patio.
Yeah.
And suddenly they would shut down Connecticut, and here comes Biden's motorcade. And he would zip from the White House right up Connecticut, hit DuPont Circle, go up Massachusetts, and go right to the observatory.
And everything was closed down.
Yes, but relatively easy commute.
Yeah.
Right? Connecticut, DuPont Circle, Massachusetts, Naval Observatory, done. This night, he said, no, we're going to stop by Cafe Milano. I want you at dinner time to try to drive from the White House to Cafe Milano in the heart of Georgetown. The mess that creates.
Oh, my God.
The diversion and I'm sorry, Connecticut's wide open. Massachusetts wide open. The streets
Wisconsin
in Georgetown.
and M are
thank you.
And then Cafe Milano is actually on a very
little
narrow,
that's right.
narrow street.
So
that
the
also,
motorcade stops at Cafe Milano, and then before the vice president just saunters into a restaurant.
They have to do advance.
A total suite.
Yep.
They have to go through and check everything out. The Secret Service does.
So the point is, it wasn't like, hey, honey, I'll be a half an hour late because I'm going to stop by and see Tim at the TGI Fridays.
That's right.
This was not the...
I'm just going to swing by and say hi to everybody.
Yeah.
No, this is a major deal. By the way, if you're a Russian oligarch and you're having your little chicken parmigiana there, and that's impressive. Suddenly all the sirens are coming and the lights are flashing and Secret Service comes in and the Vice President of the United States, and I'm sure everyone stood and applauded for him at Cafe Milano.
It's like he was paid to do it.
And he makes a beeline for that room, says hello, Nostrovia.
Yeah, a little star power there.
He leaves. You don't think some business was done immediately after
you don't
the
think
vice president
some,
left?
yeah.
And there's no hard evidence
thinking
that it
Hunter,
affected
boy,
policy.
he earned that money.
Yeah, he sure did. That's the business they were in. All right, coming up, how the media reacted and covered up the story next.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.
Making sense of the news.
News Talk 105.9.
News now
On News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
All right, we're already just flying through this Tuesday morning. First day of August, it's 5:37 on O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in here. Coming up later this morning, we're going to kick it off with 6:35 with Ginny Gentles of Independent Women's Forum on an event in Alexandria about your school systems. 7:05, Mike Summers, American Petroleum Institute. 7:35, Jim Lehman, Transparency in Education. And then at 8:05, our pal Bethany Mendel out of Montgomery County, latest on their curriculum. I'm Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlock.
Good morning.
Julie, good morning. Were you glued to all of this coverage yesterday and the fallout and everything? And
I got to say, it's better than it is reality TV. Yeah. It is a scandal. It really is.
This Dan Goldman became such a laughingstock with his response.
Oh,
and it's but here's what's funny. This is what happens with the media. They wait for the official word, and then everybody takes it.
Doesn't that contradict the president's statement saying that he never talked to any of Hunter Biden business associates? Clearly he talked, whether about the weather or whatever, but he said specifically that he's never talked to them. Doesn't this contradict him?
I don't know what his comment is, and if we're going to, I don't think that's what he said. He never said that he has never spoken to anyone. He said that he had nothing to do with Hunter Biden's business dealings.
No, we know exactly what he said. We've said it over and over again. But boy, that message then, he never, of course, it's preposterous to think that he won't talk to anybody. But okay, so here's the lead, is it the lead sentence or one of the top sentences in the New York Times coverage of this? It's just remarkable.
It is remarkable.
Where did it go? Oh, here we go. It has long been known that the elder Mr. Biden at times interacted with his son's business partners. It has long been known.
But this is a fill in the blank sentence that the New York Times constantly repeats.
That's like
It has
ad-lib,
long
ad-lib.
been known that he stumbles with language.
Right.
It has long been known that he trips.
Yeah.
It has long been known that he walks like a robot and sometimes almost falls off the stage.
I can play this game. Let me try one. It's long been known that thing Joe Biden has denied over and over again for the last 10 years has been false.
You're better at this.
I think, well, I'm more accurate at least. So there's the New York Times spinning it, and that's pretty much what we got everywhere. Well, there's no smoking done and there's no evidence. Okay, here's what evidence is. Evidence is testimony, and then further testimony that corroborates the original testimony, and then documentation, financial documents,
WhatsApp messages.
WhatsApp text messages, emails.
Yep. Pictures of where they were at certain times.
That's right. Corroboration of all the people involved in the meetings and elsewhere.
Whistleblowers.
And then when any of that testimony, and it all fits together, the financial records fit together, the vice president's actions out of his own mouth saying what he's going to do for Burisma and what he did do with the prosecutor in Ukraine. The testimony, the paperwork, the financial records, the business dealings, when all of that corroborates and all of that meshes, and it contradicts the testimony or the story or the excuses that the primary focus, Joe Biden, has been giving. What message has he been sending for 10 years? I never was involved in any of this. I didn't
never
talk to my
talked to my
son.
son.
I don't know what he's doing. I don't know what he's up to. I don't know anything about anything that he does. Remember the old story where he said, I didn't talk to him. I just said, I hope you know what you're doing. Right? Remember that?
Yes. But as you pointed out, he can then say with certainty, I know he never got any money from China. Well, how do you know?
Right. I never
How do you
talked to him.
know?
I never talked to him.
But I know he never got.
But I guarantee you he never got any money from China. That's a lie. How do you know?
What?
The only appropriate answer is, well, he could have gotten money from
'cause
China.
I don't know.
How would I know?
Yeah,
I never talked to
him.
him. No. But so we're supposed to buy all of that. We're supposed to
Contradictions
buy
and all
of that. All of the testimony, all of the paperwork, all of the, what the investigators like to refer to as evidence, all corroborates itself, all fits together and makes the same picture. And then the one outlier, the one guy who's been denying it all and is in counter-distinction to all of that evidence, is the central focus of the investigation, and that is Joe Biden. Then something's wrong. And what's wrong is Joe Biden's story. And so now they have to clean up his story. The media has to do all of the work for his lawyers and say, well, we've always known that he talked. So as we move the goalposts, what's the final end game here?
You know, you're forgetting one other thing that you point out. You point out quite often on Twitter. You kind of do this to your daily reminder that Joe Biden is a jerk.
He's a terrible person.
He's a terrible person.
Yes.
I mean, you and I have been in this town long enough. When I worked on the Hill, Biden was a senator. Mm-hmm. Okay. And everyone knew he was a jerk and a blowhard and a braggart.
Right.
And it's almost like, I mean, the idea, I remember when I first started on Capitol Hill, the idea that Bernie Sanders would run for president and Joe Biden would be president. I mean, you'd be laughed out of the room.
That's right.
But here we are. So, you forget that. And the fact that he ignored his granddaughter. I mean, this is a moral midget that we're talking about here.
That's right. It's a great point, especially considering we're told these days in modern day circa 2020, 2024 presidential politics.
Character matters.
The character is on the ballot. Morality is on the ballot. Integrity is on the ballot. Take your pick, everybody. Okay, well, you know what? I don't remember Donald Trump, as flawed as a human being as he is, as we all are. I don't remember him coming anywhere close to this kind of scandal with his family and with his family's finances. Oh, they talked about it all the time. They threw accusations at it all the time.
He's facing indictment, and he didn't even use bleach bit.
Right, exactly. Well, but that's where we are right now. When we hear Representative Dan Goldman and the New York Times and the broadcast network say, well, they just talked about the weather and what was going on in their lives, we're right back to Hillary Clinton saying, oh, those 30,000 emails were really just wedding planning and scheduling yoga sessions.
And what does it matter anyway?
And at this point, what difference does it make?
Thank you.
Again, the New York Times and the Washington Post and the media, they're doing their best. But I get the sense, and I think you feel it in this town right now as well, the tide has turned. There's more on this, as you can imagine. Stick with us. It's 5:43.
First of all, I have never discussed with my son or my brother or anyone else anything having to do with their businesses, period.
How many times have you ever spoken to your son about his overseas business dealings?
I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings.
Do you stand by your statement that you did not discuss any of your son's overseas business?
Yes, I stand by that statement. No, I don't discuss business with my son. I never discussed a single thing with my son about anything having to do with Ukraine. No one has indicated I have. We've always kept everything separate.
And I've never discussed my son's business with him because I didn't want any conflict.
I don't know what he was doing. I know he was on.
That's a heck of a record there. From
that is a heck of a...
And that's a pretty clear message, and it contradicts all of the evidence on the table. So it's impeachment time, right?
It is. You know, Larry, you and I kind of called it yesterday. We said they're going to spin this as, oh, he just stopped by. We kind of were talking about that yesterday.
Yeah.
I'm wondering when we're going to start hearing the people are beating up an old man, a nice old man next, right?
Who really just wanted to help his son out. Right. Oh, calling
I just
him
wonder what the next
Yeah.
thing is.
Well, or they're just going to do what they did yesterday.
I didn't expect the weather.
Which is, I didn't expect that one either. You're right. But they'll do what they did yesterday, which is basically spin it, as we've mentioned, or they'll ignore it. They'll ignore it. Here, just an hour before the testimony occurred, this is all you heard on MSNBC. Thank you to the folks at Media Research Center for this one.
In the week with the latest on former President Donald Trump. Trump's. We heard from Trump.
Donald Trump, Mr. Trump, Donald Trump's mouth.
Trump advisors, Trump.
The Trump situation, Trump's.
President Trump.
Donald Trump, 4 more years.
Trump. As it relates to Trump, Donald Trump, and that's Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump himself, and Trumpism.
Donald Trump.
This was MSNBC. This is if you tune in there for your morning news.
Donald Trump still ahead on Morning Joe. Donald Trump plus. We've got Trump plus Trump. That's former President Trump.
So of course this Devon Archer story breaks, and if you do rely on them for your, are they still going?
The Trump world.
Donald Trump
train.
Donald Trump.
Wow.
With Trump. Donald Trump's employees. Great analysis as always. Thank you.
Then you have no idea what's going on in the world, and you don't know what's happening, and so then you'll get outraged. Like, what those crazy Republicans are doing, this is nothing. Because you haven't been informed, because you haven't actually gotten information or news. Jonathan Turley, who is, no crazy right-wing. In fact, he's still a registered Democrat.
He's a Democrat.
Last time I checked. He reacted to the testimony yesterday.
Well, what we now know, quite frankly, is that the president has been lying. I mean, he lied during the presidential campaign. He lied as president when he had his staff repeat that he had no knowledge, no interaction with these business dealings. That's clearly false. I mean, these are accounts of almost 24 calls made with these associates, some of whom are the most corrupt figures in Europe, where the vice president would call in. That's the point of influence peddling. When Archer says that he was there to sell the brand is influence peddling, and Joe Biden is the object of that influence peddling.
That's pretty clear. It went on to say that it's shaping up to be one of the greatest corruption scandals in the history of Washington. That's Jonathan Turley, who is not a bomb thrower by any stretch of the imagination. I heard Mark Levin yesterday saying that the president himself, by the measure of the law, you know how we were talking about how Hunter Biden is facing an investigation for not registering as a foreign agent, the FARA Act. Joe Biden, as Mark Levin put it, is in fact a foreign agent.
Yes.
Joe Biden should have registered with FARA. You could have your own investigation of that. So we are definitely one step closer. As I said in the last segment, I feel like this has turned a corner now, and there is no going back. This is dominant. This must be pursued, and we have the right people in place. Not to say I told you so, but all the Eeyore Republicans who told me that the midterms were an abject failure because we only got a 5-seat majority, I told you the day after the election, all you need is a 1-seat majority. That's all that matters in the House, because that gives you the gavel, that gives you subpoena power, that gives you the committees, and it gives you Jim Comer, Jim Jordan, and Jason Smith in charge of the committees investigating instead of Adam Schiff and Jerry Nadler investigating. And here we are. We're reaping the benefits only 6 months later, and there's more to come. If you had to predict right now, do you think Joe Biden makes it to the election day next year?
I do not think so.
I don't either. I really don't. It's 5:53.